Christmas Carol, Act 3, the second of the three spirits. Scrooge awoke in his bedroom. The walls and ceiling were so hung with living green that it looked a perfect grove. The leaves of holly, mistletoe, and ivy reflected back the light, and such a mighty blaze went roaring up the chimney. Heaped upon the floor to form a kind of throne were turkeys, geese, great joints of meat, pigs, long wreaths of sausage, mince pies, plum pudding, barrels of oysters, red hot chestnuts, and cherry cheeked apples, juicy oranges, luscious pears, great bowls of punch, and immense 12 cakes. Upon this couch there sat a giant glorious to see, who bore a glowing torch. Come in, and know me better, man. I am the ghost of Christmas present. Look upon me. You have never seen the likes of me before. Touch my robe. Scrooge did as he was told, and held it fast. The room and its content all vanished instantly, and they stood in the city streets upon a snowy Christmas morning. Scrooge and the ghost passed on, invisible, straight to Scrooge's clerks, and on the threshold of the door the spirit smiled and stooped to bless Bob Cratchit's dwelling with the sprinkling of his torch. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit. What has ever got your precious father then? And your brother, Tiny Tim? No, no, there's father coming, cried the two young Cratchits, who were everywhere at once. In came Bob, the father, his threadbare clothes darned up and brushed to look seasonable, and Tiny Tim upon his shoulder. Alas for Tiny Tim, he bore a little crutch, and had his limbs supported by an iron frame. And how did little Tim behave? As good as gold and better. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting by himself so much, and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me, coming home, that he hoped the people saw him in the church, because he was a cripple, and it might be pleasant to them to remember upon Christmas Day who made lame beggars walk and blind men see. Master Peter and the two young crackheads went to fetch the goose, with which they soon returned in high procession. Mrs. Crackit made the gravy, ready beforehand in a little saucepan, hissing hot. Master Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. The two young Cratchit set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves, and crammed spoons into their mouth, lest they should shriek for goose before their turn came to be helped. At last the dishes were set out, and grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause, and Miss Cratchit, looking slowly all along the carving knife, prepared to plunge it in the breast. But when she did, and when the long expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose around the table, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young crackers, beat on the table with the handle of his knife and feebly cried, "Hurrah!" But now, the plates being changed by Miss Belinda, Miss Cratchit left the room alone to take the pudding up and bring it in. Mrs. Cratchit entered, smiling proudly, with the pudding like a speckled cannonball, so hard and firm, blazing in half and half of a quadrant of ignited brandy, and bedined with Christmas holly stuck into the top. Oh, a wonderful pudding! At last the dinner was all done, the cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth, while the chestnuts on the fire sputtered and crackled noisily. They were happy, grateful, pleased with one another, and contented with the time. And when they faded, and looked happier yet in the bright sprinklings of the Spirit's torch at passing, Scrooge has his eye upon them, and especially on Tiny Tim until the last. But the whole scene passed off, and he and the Spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. Suddenly, as they stood together in an open place, the bell strung. Bung, 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 bung. 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost and saw it no more. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him.